Hey guys, Legendary Grimlock here, and welcome back to another survival video. Sorry, this one took so long to make, but I had TikTok videos to make as well. So, the reason why this one took so long to make is because I actually had to add the voting mechanics. So this one actually had to go through some rewrites. And you guys are absolutely monsters for wanting to sacrifice someone to the monster. But again, I understand why I wanted to do this. It tests the people's character and adds a lot more of the the conflict to the group here. So today we're doing a round 2 with the killer bass. In all honesty, the results here are going to be different as I went through a whole bunch of drafts with these exact characters, and it makes so much sense on why I had to do this here. So they'll be getting the same treatment. They'll be on the island of Panalai from Dead Island Riptide, and yeah, they'll actually be going through the same thing the Screaming Gophers did. Will more survive? Well, just stick around and see. So a couple rules before we get into this here. They'll have to do the exact same thing the Screaming Gopher did and make their way to Henderson in order to find the boat here. And just a little bit of an update here, they'll be using their currently updated personalities, meaning the same thing with the Screaming Gophers, where nobody likes Heather. Gwen and Trent were kind of okay with each other. Owen, Justin, Heather, and stuff like that. And if you guys remember those results, it came down to just Gwen and Lashana actually being the only ones to make it, with an honorable mention being Trent, as he was pretty much the heroic sacrifice that the Moorwen took at the end here, luring it away so the others could get on the boat here. With the final two actually dying being Heather and Justin, as they pretty much would have nowhere to go at that point, right? So, yeah, they'll be doing the same thing, and the Morrowind will also be pretty much coherent or pretty much adherent to the voting mechanic, meaning that it won't attack the base unless they pretty much leave somebody there. So, yeah, it's a pretty simple thing here, but to give them an edge, or at least to give them a connection to the old one, we'll say that Gwen and Duncan were still a thing, and that Gwen, out of the, kindness of her heart here, and because it's her boyfriend here, would actually warn Duncan about, the Moorwen, about what it's actually doing here, and would have actually left them information. We'll also say that Chris pretty much informs them about what their challenges and what their tasks are, and that they'll actually be able to get basically a written or a diagram of the Moorwen and the map of the island. The reason why this actually works for this crew is because of Bridget, and I'll be explaining why later. So without being said here, let's begin. And the first part of it is the chase here. The team arrives on the beach, and the Moorwen is pretty much going to be let loose after a 10-minute head start. So when the group gets running, and they have to make it to the Paradise Survival Camp. Now, once the Moorwens are unleashed, which would actually be from this rock standing point here, you see this miniature rock like right across from the ship, or in front of the ship, I should say here. The Moorwen's going to bolt, swim over, which it actually can do at very surprising speeds here. Not sure how fast it would actually be when chasing land animals, but it should be decently fast here. Now, no one actually dies during this part, and I'll explain why. Many you might say, oh, well, Sadie, because, she's not as athletic as the group. She's actually pretty decently athletic, at least more athletic than Owen. Plus, she's not, fat and stuff like that. She's just chubby. It might sound like I'm nitpicking, but again, she has less weight than Owen. Like, just look it up. Owen isn't even athletic to begin with. Like, it's ridiculous here. Now, would Courtney betray the group because, again, it's her updated personality? No, not right here. At least not right there. She's a little too opportunistic for that. So the Moorwen doesn't get anybody right away. So this is where we head to the Paradise Survival Camp. Now, who actually takes charge of the team? Now, I think it would be pretty simple and pretty easy for them to honestly just survey the area. Let me get to that first. Survey the area. They would definitely have a logical point here in destroying the bridge here, because again, the Moorwen could just use it to run up on them when they're sleeping, jump over the hideouts and stuff, and then just snatch one. And they would also want to electrify the exits, as they will pretty much get a diagram of pretty much defending the base here. And whoever doesn't contribute the most here, yeah, I don't see it happening. Now, this is where I think Duncan would definitely take charge here, much to Courtney's protest and stuff, but the others would actually be backing him here. Keep in mind, Duncan would have more votes for him being the team leader than Courtney would, because again, Courtney's just a little too unbearable here. Now, the thing about it is, Bridget would definitely get the diagram, excuse me, of the Moorwen here. And it's because she's actually very good with studying and diagnosing animals here. You see, she actually works extensively with animals by the end of the World Tour series. So it is what it is here. Now, while that happens, I think Duncan will be fixing the truck and Harold will be collecting any technology he can from around the area. But the first step I definitely see is when they have to get the equipment for the electrified fence here. And the people I see going here are DJ and Tyler, which I actually think is a very funny combo. The reason why I'm saying this would be a funny combo is simply because the fact that these two would be kind of scared and paranoid. And believe it or not, Tyler kind of sucks at being athletic. And while I do think he would be very aware of his environment, I think he would be so paranoid that he'd be looking at so many angles that the Moorwen would take advantage of this and just pounce on him from the water area of the Mataka village near the whatchamacallit, near this safe house here, and would basically just snatch Tyler from from the from the I guess you could say the dock or whatever of this area, and just drag him into the water in like a gory fashion. You would just see the Moorwen just tearing into him when he like just hits the water. And DJ would be running for his life at this time, but would already have the equipment here. Now, keep in mind, this is close to the what's called the trailer park area, where I would actually see a couple people collecting batteries, collecting car parts and stuff like that. And that would be Jeff, Eva, and Ezekiel. Now, Eva would actually be getting the much more heavier stuff here and discovering that another car works on this island. Yeah, I think it would actually be I think it'd be pretty good, pretty simple here for them to, grab the equipment and stuff and just hightail it out of there by using that truck here. Ezekiel will be the lookout, and it's very possible he could be very shady because, again, he is typically like that, and for some reason he just doesn't like DJ. So it's very possible he doesn't tell the others that he's right behind them if they so-called get into the car. But DJ is definitely fast enough to where he would get there in time and warn the others that the Moorwen had just took Tyler. They would get all the equipment, get the last battery, head back to the base, and DJ would drop the fence equipment in the truck, hop in, and they would speed off. The next group I have is Courtney, Katie, and Sadie, actually going by the, the beach area to get food out of the cabin area. So they would basically be getting food, the water, the essentials, and stuff like that. As again, there was pretty much, canned food and a decent amount of stuff by the beach. So it's very possible they would get that. And again, remember, Harold is collecting all the technology, and once he actually gets some of the technology that he needs for the electrical fences, he would actually be putting that together and make sure the group completely has it all together. So, yeah, the group would basically put up the fences for the night, definitely have them electrified and stuff like that, and yeah, they would basically be all set. I don't really see anyone dying because I don't see anyone being dumb enough to sleep outdoors if the Moorwen is able to, get there, because, I mean, it definitely could here. It could definitely snatch someone through the floorboards, but I definitely see them sleeping in the bar area, and the first thing in the morning, they take both trucks and definitely make it. So this means the Killer Bass only lose one member in Tyler. You might say, wait, why don't they lose anybody when they, head to the base here? Because, again, we know that Noah, with the Screaming Gophers, isn't as intelligent as Duncan and the others, or at least Duncan and Harold, when it comes to mechanics and stuff. He's more of a book nerd than anything. So, with that being said here, I do think they make it to the Halai village and definitely are able to get a certain, a couple things there. And they will immediately go to the safe zone without the need to honestly go into the, danger zone. It's very possible that they would, but again, they really wouldn't here. Now, let's get into the voting mechanic where they would actually have to vote someone out of their group here in order to give it to the Moorwen. And this is where I actually see Ezekiel. Now, again, I do think Ezekiel really hasn't changed too much since the 2 seasons he was in. He was still a screw up, and he was probably still sexist. So I'd probably pay that into a factor. I definitely could see them telling him to get lost. And this is where I would actually have him running around the island trying to avoid the Moorwen, but the Moorwen's just playing with him. And as soon as he gets into a boat here and he takes off, the Moorwen simply heads into the water and does pretty much a boat chase at this point. Keep in mind the Moorwen is flexible enough and is semi-aquatic as it was able to snatch people into the water when it wanted to. And I kind of see this playing like a Godzilla -1 boat scene, except Ezekiel doesn't have a turn on the back of his ship here, and the sheer fact that the Moorwen gets him here. Now, during this time, this is where someone would find a gun here, as they were pretty much searching the facility, looking for any equipment they could use here. And I do think some of them would go into the danger zone to collect any supplies, especially medical supplies, because there is a medical facility here, So they would use that opportunity to collect some medical supplies, and I actually think the gun would be found in the safe zone area, just like in the original story. Now, in the original one, we gave them a pistol because, again, it just fits the dynamic here. In this one, I would give them a rifle, and the one who's going to find it is definitely Courtney. Now, keep in mind here, Courtney has her updated personality, where she's more or less hateful, she's a little bit darker, she's a little more willing to betray others and even sabotage her own team. Again, yes, I would definitely call it character assassination by a large, and I mean a large portion here. But again, she and Duncan are not together, and I can just honestly see her doing it. It's in her character at this point here, meaning that she would actually leave somebody here to die, and I think it would actually be Sadie, because again, she would think that Sadie would slow them down, and again, someone is going to be sacrificed to stall the Moorwen. But again, this will serve the purpose of getting them into the tunnels as quick as possible, to which I think would happen here. Now again, keep in mind, they're speeding it along because they are a much more logical team. The problem with the Screaming Gophers is that, again, they had a lot more, I guess you could say, things to deal with, and a lot more people to, I guess you could say, sacrifice and throw to the fire. And then there's also the sheer fact they had more villains on their team. So it's kind of like a who do you trust kind of situation. And again, trying to, I guess you could say, divide the team would have been more essential there. Now, when they're in the tunnel here, I do see a couple of them carrying things like oil canisters and stuff like that, just in case they want to set a trap for the Moorwen. And this is where I would actually see the Moorwen just appearing on them, and they would throw probably like some type of light down the tunnel where the Moorwen appears here, and it would use this bioluminescent glow, which definitely sounds terrifying in my opinion. Now, this is where I actually see Eva being the noble sacrifice. Now, keep in mind, there's a difference between the noble sacrifice and the heroic sacrifice. The noble sacrifice actually sacrifices themselves to buy them some time, and their sacrifice is ultimately in vain. I actually see Eva using any of the oil canisters to trap herself in the Moorwen in another room, and using some kind of lighter or even flares, which are in the sewers by the way, to actually light it on fire and causing an explosion, killing possibly both of them, or the Moorwen is able to get a hold of her just before the explosion goes off. So it's a 50-50. Now to the Panelized station here, which is actually one of the least safest places in my opinion when it comes to a zombie apocalypse. It's way too open. Now, the thing is here, I definitely could see Duncan wanting to get the gun away from Courtney, as she's a little too untrustworthy, if not a whole lot untrustworthy. So the plan is, when they set up defenses and stuff, when nighttime hits here, they all would pretty much rush Courtney, and I think this would actually work here, because again, she would probably tired and dazed at the moment, so they will all pretty much rush her without a shot getting, shot off here, and they would tie her up for the night, or they would actually do it early in the morning, getting the jump on her, and Tyra leaving her there. Now, this is also where I would actually see them using the ferry to basically get themselves a means of transportation to Henderson. However, this is also when the Moorwen pretty much would spot them. However, with Courtney being tied up and Courtney being easy prey, I think you put two and two together, and they actually get rid of the villain a lot more quickly than the Screaming Gophers did. So it's pretty simple and straightforward. This is where they would then secure the Henderson station almost immediately. And again, this is the time where the Moorwen would definitely show up. Now again, I do think there is probably an hour or two in between the Moorwen showing up. But keep in mind, we also give the Moorwen a much more ravenous or Tiger-X-Devil Joe-like appetite. Meaning that it's on the constant state of hunger, and its hunger ends when obviously the survival video ends, right? So when they secure the Henderson station and they board themselves in from the Moorwen, this is where again the voting mechanic pops in. Now, I don't really see them getting rid of DJ, and I do think that Duncan wouldn't get rid of Katie because she's already been through so much here. And the thing is, I don't see Duncan getting rid of DJ, Jeff, and Bridget. I really don't see that because they are some of his closest friends here. Meaning, Harold is the one to bite the dust here. Yeah, I actually do see that. I see Harold being the one to bite the dust here, unfortunately. And it's honestly because he doesn't really have a deep connection to the others. And because it honestly makes the most sense here for him to be the one that sacrificed here. So that means they would throw him out, the Moorwen would snatch him up and run all to a different area. Now, here's where everything kind of changes here, and this is why I had to do so many reruns of this, is that Duncan is way too logical to go to the next safety point, which would be the movie studios, and then heading to the fortress area. No, I think Duncan would definitely make a clean break for the the quarantine zone here where the boat is, and this is where I actually see them getting off the island. However, I do think the Moorwen, excuse me for that voice crack, I do think the Moorwen would definitely try to get Katie at this point. However, Duncan is the one to make the heroic sacrifice. Now, you might say, why would he do this? He'd be looking out for himself. Keep in mind, in Total Drama All-Stars, which is honestly one of the most biggest and most most dramatic character assassinations ever, Duncan is actually a pretty good person at that point. So I actually see that kind of bringing his character full circle to where he would actually sacrifice himself for Gwen and instead sacrifice himself for Katie at this point and would actually hold off the Moorwen. The Moorwen would definitely be riddled up by the bullets here, but again, they really wouldn't affect him just like in the original. And this means Bridget, Jeff, DJ, and Katie are the ones to leave, with them hearing Duncan's screams as they pretty much leave the island. So, yeah, what happened and what was the difference? Because I am going to compare these two. So, what's the difference here is really just chemistry. Even with the updated personalities, Heather is really unliked by the entire group here. Gwen and Lashana are pretty cool. Noah and Cody are somewhat cool. Trent is pretty much liked by half the group here. And then you have Lindsay and Beth, who are just completely idiots, or at least Lindsay's the idiot, and Beth goes on to follow her. Meanwhile, the Killer Bass, they all have a decent amount of chemistry, and Eva has actually mellowed out her personality. The only problems is that you just have Ezekiel being the, again, kind of the slacker of the group, and is usually one of the few I thought would be first to die, but it actually be Tyler, because when he gets scared, he actually gets a little paranoid here, and would actually be a terrible lookout, because he'd be looking all over the place instead of thinking logically and thinking where the creature would pop up. Then you also have Ezekiel, who I already explained earlier. He's, exist and stuff like that. His personality is pretty much garbage, and he normally fumbles the bag. Then you just have, again, the voting mechanic, which would just get the others out of the way here. Courtney, definitely being the villain of the group, would definitely sacrifice somebody to the creature just to get it out the way and definitely nullify the voting mechanic. And then the team would immediately turn on her because they don't have that room for patience, or at least the room to I guess you could say, or at least have anyone backing her. I should really say, other than like Heather and Courtney does. Sorry, Heather and Justin would. So in all honesty, yeah, the Killer Bass make it a lot better against the Moorwen than the Screaming Gophers. So that's gonna be all today. Please comment, like, and subscribe, and share with your friends. This is Legendary Grimlock, and I hope y'all have a blessed day. And I'll see y'all next for the next Survivor video. Excuse me. Peace.